What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. I was wondering where that PTR patch was going to go, and it looks like most of those changes, as well as some more, were put onto the experimental card, but this time, there's a good chance most of these are intended for live. Obviously, they had it on the PTR indicating that, but also in the patch notes, they announced the experimental mode update, asking for all of our feedback on some of these upcoming balance tweaks, but this one will be using the 2-2-2 role queue rule set, just like quick play and competitive, so that we can get a feel on how these balance changes might affect the live game. So all of these might not go through, but it's more of an indication of what direction they're going. So first of all, b.o.b is now immune to sleep. This would be an outrageous buff in my opinion. b.o.b already tears things up, and I don't know how I feel about this one because b.o.b is incredible when he doesn't get slept. It's that Ana is so good and it's so reliable to get a sleep on b.o.b that makes him kind of a weak ult, but if they changed this interaction, I think it would be b.o.b's day in the sun. Because think about it, tanking and just defense and shields and everything went down and down and down, so it was harder to protect b.o.b in this new era of Overwatch, but also the enemy doesn't have as much protection, and I already think Torb is pretty good with a turret. Well, b.o.b's a super turret, right? This interaction change would be so big, I think you might need a Sombra to hack him, because everything else, sure, you can stun him and try to focus him and stuff, but it's such a resource drain on the enemy, as opposed to just one cooldown to shut down the whole ult with sleep on a character that you want to be playing anyway with Ana, who's really strong, as opposed to Sombra, who has a questionable power level in ranked, I'd say. I don't know, this change would be pretty massive. Let me know what you guys think about this experimental change on our Twitter at YourOverwatchYT. I'm really interested. I think there's a chance it's like way too good, and nobody likes auto-aim turrets that feel like they have too strong of a hold on the game. Interested to see what you guys think. Next change is to Batista Exo Boots. The charge time has been reduced from 1 second to 0.7, so nearly a third reduction in how long it takes for him to get ready to jump up into the air. And his regenerative burst cooldown has been lowered by 2 seconds. Still a really long cooldown, let's be fair, but considering he lost some of his healing power on his primary fire heal, this cooldown buff sort of helps out with that. I still don't think by much. I think the Exo Boots buff is a bit more interesting, especially with that vertical mobility being a great escape up against dive. Batista is always a funny character in how he interacts with dive, where when Immortality Field was too good, then dive was just inefficient against him, then they nerfed that. So now they're trying to put a bit more of that anti-dive power into Batista, where if you jump correctly, an entire initiation or dragon blade could get dodged if you have the moves and use the right section of the map. So I don't know if this would tier jump Batista at all, but I like this direction because it takes some power away from just the pure cooldown stats and more adds power into his interaction, which I think is a good principle we've seen work in lots of other heroes during the anti-power creep era of Overwatch balancing. Next change is the d.va. Already know this one. Thrusters from 3 seconds to 4. The biggest period that you'll notice this nerf is when you go aggro into a spot and used to be able to escape. Now in that aggro position you're staging from, you'll have an entire second extra before you have your get out of jail free cooldown to run away again. I think this is a really important nerf that they need to put through, especially if Mei's power level's going down. d.va can just kind of do whatever she wants with 3 seconds of DM. Next change is to Mei's Ice Wall. We've talked about this loads. They don't list the collision change on here, but I assume it's like in a bug section or maybe coming from the PTR. Not sure if it's on the card or not. The next change is to Orisa, putting the primary damage back up to 11. I find it kind of funny that's going back and forth, but that's exactly what they need to do to keep up with the game. Not going to criticize this at all. The context of the game is always changing, and although I would be afraid if we ever get Orisa to the power level she used to be, she should never be the best tank in the game. No way. But I will say that only having 10 damage per shot felt so disempowering as Orisa that the only thing you did was set up halts and have fortify. Feeling like you can make an impact with your damage should be a thing in a shooter game, right? it's bad when that's way better than what the very fun brawling and dive tanks can do. But overall, I think the devs just aren't really sure what to do with Orisa. She is basically an off tank now, or kind of a questionable main tank. It's hard to secure the bunker playstyle when your bunker can't hold up on its own. So I don't know what direction they even can go with Orisa. They might just have to rework her. Like, would anybody really mind if she just lost the barrier and the power in her kit moved elsewhere? Like, if she was just sort of like Zarya as an off tank, but we gave her power in another way? Why does everything need a barrier is what I'm saying. I think the Orisa main tank concept is so far removed at this point that they should just go the extra step and allow her to be more fun as a brawling alternative, or just make her niche again. I'd be fine with that too if she was just a high ground setup character, but I think either direction would work and make the game more fun. But that's just one man's opinion. Next up, Sigma. His gravitic flux cost was reduced by 10%. We knew about that one. It was on the PTR before, but his flight speed was increased by 30%. I think this is so important and such a good change, because since he could be interrupted so easily, either by dying or any disable in the game, a mid-air sleep, a hack, a stun, basically anything, being able to zoom through the sky, I think is going to feel awesome and allow him to have a bit more of a chance to set up that ultimate. This could be a huge change, actually, if it ever goes through. I still want his one-hit kill combo to come back. I think that's pretty essential for his mid-fight to be more useful than d.va, but this would make his ultimate good again and also have a lot of skill to the interaction of it, I think, where with the speed of it, that means he's going to be able to fly farther during the duration of it. Like, you actually can go farther and catch up to people. Like, speed is so important in the game, especially while flying. It allows you to do so much more with it. Now, you can't go super deep like you used to, because the threat of getting interrupted is just so massive that it's not like you can play really ignorantly with it like you could in the double barrier meta, but a step in the right direction for sure. I like this one. The buff to soldiers' rockets are now on the experimental card as well. And one last buff to Sombra's machine pistol. Her primary fire spread has been decreased by 10%. That's pretty huge considering how much firepower she brings in a clip of her submachine gun. And the way you have to think about this is it's a range buff, because targets have various sizes in Overwatch. Now the cone of her spread will be decreased by 10%, which just means she has better duel potential, better ability to farm off tanks. And we know what the range buff to Tracer did. Sombra's range already was a bit better than Tracer's, so I would say a spread decrease is better than that, because it'll improve her ability to lay in the hurt at all ranges, more lethal at close, better poke at range, just all around good. Now, does this make her a good character all of a sudden? Well, she already was used at the pro level, and I might make some guides on how they're able to utilize her. I think she's just so hard to execute in ranked that that's where this buff comes from, because I think if they were only balancing for Owl, they would probably leave her alone. But we've seen this be the case in the past where Sombra and the other flankers really leapfrog one another when one is better. And tweaks in this department have the potential to shake that up yet again. I assume Owl players would be really nervous about this buff, and ranked players might feel it's a bit necessary to get her to be more competitive with other things. The only problem is a lot of people might forget, because we just had such a long period where Mei was a dominant do-everything hero. Sombra very easily can be that. So my vote would be to keep her on the kind of niche category and not force her back in, because all of a sudden you realize, just like Mei, when Sombra becomes a top pick, very quickly a whole bunch of stuff just loses tons of power. So I don't want to see that happen personally. I wouldn't mind, because I like playing Sombra. She's more of a game sense movement hero, and that's right up my alley. So I'll take the free SR. I don't know about you. But that's it for today's patch notes breakdown. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet our news updates and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.